So Verica, a question, archetypes and the meaning of life and teenagers.
Oh my goodness. Too many questions. Well, the meaning of life. We cannot live without meaning of life. If we do not have meaning, it is very difficult. Whatever happens to us, it is very, very difficult. But when we know what we want to achieve, when we are aware that we are spiritual beings, that our potential is huge, that we can always find a solution which is connected with value. Value gives us this feeling of sense. Everything is different when we have this value. Then it is much easier, even in very, very difficult situations, in situations of war, in situations when children are abandoned or whatever. When you have these values, it is much, much easier to pass through such experiences.
And you actually mentioned that one can connect to these values and meaning of life through storytelling and archetypes within the storytelling
Yes,
environment.
we talked about these stories which are universal, which belong to a lot of cultures. Those stories are similar because they have the same inner meaning. All these roles we meet in stories are some type of archetypal roles because they repeat and repeat in many cultures in the similar way. For example, the role of mother, father, the situations of death, of birth, the situations of change. You asked about teenagers. Teenagers are passing through a very, very difficult phase of changing, and it is very, very important to give them clue for these situations. When you are in puberty, you put everything in question. You do not take things for granted, and your picture of world changes dramatically. So it is very, very important in this phase to keep to values. And this idea, I now have one thing more to say. This idea that we are free without any limits, this is totally wrong concept we have in our life. You are free to do whatever you want to, but you have consequences. You are not free without consequences. And I think that we should teach children that we are free to do what is good for us as human beings. If we do the things which belong to animal behavior or to some kind of evil devil behavior, we cannot develop as humans. So it is very important to explain to children that we are not absolutely free. And this song, well, maybe it is the most interesting to tell about my experience in Sarajevo, because you know that we were in war, in fact, our country with their country. But I worked there for 8 years in this program of human values with a very close friend of mine, Azra Jahic, and we created beautiful energy there. And the children, they were not small children, they were students, young people, were very inspired by our relationship. And we transferred values not only through stories, but through some drama activities, through singing, through doing some art activities. So it was always very, very joyful meeting between these young people and us as teachers.
And how many kids were there, and also what is the age group that you worked with, and how was their reaction? You were coming from Serbia those days.
Yes, at the beginning we had more than 100 students. They were students from 18 to 22 maybe in average. And we had at the beginning a lot of children, but later they finished faculties and the groups were smaller. But I have to tell that I received only love from them. When I started to work with them, they were shocked when they heard that I was from Belgrade. It was for them, enemy came here, but I never had any bad experience with them. They were very open, very grateful, and I think that they also had some kind of need to meet somebody good from Belgrade. So I was really very, very inspired to go there.
So a very beautiful cultural exchange in the middle of the war.
Yes, and I want to stress that this experience proved that it has strength to overcome even war wounds and those situations which are absolutely difficult.
Yes. And you work with refugees?
Yes, during the war in ex-Yugoslavia, I worked a lot with refugees who used to come to Belgrade from Croatia, Bosnia, and it was also very fruitful for me because it helped me to pass through this disintegration of the country in the best possible way, because I met with people through their difficulties and a lot of love. My experience from this time is that even war situations are not devastating. We always have opportunity to react with love. And I received a lot of love from them, and this helped me because when our ex-Yugoslavia disintegrated, everybody had this process of disintegration inside of us. We were in one country which was good country, and then something disintegrated. And for example, I grew up in Croatia. I'm from Belgrade and now I live in Belgrade, but I grew up in Croatia. It was very, very difficult, this process of staying normal, and I did not abandon my love for Croatians. This is the power of this program, to stay with love and with values.
Stay with love. So here we are, it's Verica. I wish to talk about archetypes and internet and TV and various interferences we now have, because TV and internet is so much a part of our lives. So a question for Verica, is this now more difficult, and why?
Well, to tell you the truth, I don't have a negative attitude towards internet and TV, because you can use it in a very good way, but the problem is that it is not used in a good way. And you have a lot of things on TV which are absolutely negative, with negative influence, not only on children, but on grown-ups as well. So I think that we should have some kind of discern to decide what we want to do with this energy. It is not good to be unconscious about these devices, but if you are conscious, you can use it in a very good way. So it just depends what you do with this. And
and this is not an advert for this particular cartoon, but you have just mentioned that there is a cartoon that has a beautiful archetypes within it, and that you watch it as a sort of healthy remedy. Which one is it?
It's not cartoon. It is K dramas. Now you can find a lot of beautiful stories in this area of K-dramas, which are always based on values. And I'm really surprised how many beautiful stories I found in this area. And when you meet the story with this inner value, you are inspired. You want to be a better person. You find some good solutions for some of your problems. And you know, in many stories of this type, the main character is someone who is not very powerful. They're powerless, maybe the youngest son, maybe somebody who is very poor, somebody who does not have a lot of options in life, but due to values and to his or her good behavior, they find solutions which are not visible at the beginning of the story. And this is also very good message from this type of stories about evil. Evil is very powerful at the beginning of every story of this type, but throughout the story, this evil is regularly conquered by a character who seems very weak at the beginning. And I want to tell, this is not wishful thinking, because Dharma is one of very, very important values, which is part of our inner world. Dharmic behavior means that you put everything in harmony. So when you solve some problem, when you finish your development in one area, of course we are developing all the time, nothing is finished forever, but when you finish some process, you are in harmony. And this is the sign that you have matured, that you have made something whole.
Many thanks.
Subconsciousness, and these symbols are very simple but very deep. For example, the symbol of your personality, of yourself as a soul, is a big golden circle in which you sit in the center of this circle. And this is the symbol of a mandala. We know that mandala exists in many religious systems. And when you sit in the center of your circle, which is put on the ground, and you are in the center of your being. And this is, you learn how to be with yourself, totally connected, and with the concept of higher consciousness, which is the concept of God. But because Phyllis Crystal didn't want to make any connections with concrete religious systems, you imagine higher consciousness. This is general symbol for God. So this human values program I've learned from Sri Satya Sai Baba, and it is very deep and very interesting. I was really inspired to spend years and years working in this area. And Sri Satya Sai Baba used to say that human values are Vedas of our time. And it indeed is so, because when you work on your values, when you have your principles, which are deeply human, you cannot make mistake. We don't know what the destiny will bring us, but it is always good to keep to values.
Can I ask you a question? I know you are an author of 2 books. Could you just give us a little bit of a background about yourself? You are a poet as well, and you are a teacher, and also Verica has been translating various works from English to Serbian.
Well, I am indeed poet. I wrote 2 books of poetry, but I also wrote a pedagogical book with the name Be Good to Yourself and Your Children. And it is a kind of holistic book aimed to parents, not to kids, but to parents, to help them feel good in their role of parents. And it is full of a lot of games which are in fact spiritual, holistic, because they deal with family soul. Lovely.
And the workshops you are working with, are they connected to kids or they are for grown-ups?
They are also for grown-ups, but I work with kids because it is very good to give this type of knowledge to kids. In fact, the essence of this program is to awaken this type of knowledge, because we are born with this knowledge. This is our essential part to understand what is valuable, to find sense in our life. And the basic methodology is telling stories. We do this program through stories. And not only telling stories, but for some exercises of meditation, very good discussions after stories are present, and a lot of games, which also make these values, we put them into life when we do with games with groups of children.
And you're saying about the stories. I know that even Rudolf Steiner has worked with stories and mythology. He would recommend use of mythology. What is your way of working with stories?
Well, story is the essential part of human culture. Whenever we want to transfer, to explain some of our human experiences, we tell the stories. So this telling of stories is always present in each and every culture. And also, when we tell stories about our life to somebody else, in the same time we explain things to ourselves. So stories helps us to understand.
Actually, as far as ancient Greeks, isn't it?
Yes.
We find different records of storytelling and using storytelling in finding our own subconscious material. Do you use acting with storytelling within workshops?
Of course, and I like to tell stories. I really enjoy doing this. So kids like to listen to me because I enjoy. This is always connected. When teacher does something with a child, it is not only a task of teacher, and it is not a responsibility of child. We together make some kind of space, spiritual space in which connection happens. So it is very important for me to love this way of transferring values or some life truths we can tell, use another word.
So it would be improvised stories. They would have created them themselves during the workshop, or you would create them, or you have some sort of base to work with?
It depends what you want to achieve for this day, but basically you use stories which are which belong to cultural heritage of many nations. When you work, for example, when I work here in Serbia, I use a lot of stories which belong to our heritage, but also the stories from other nations, because this inner woven energy is the same. It doesn't matter if you're from Africa or Serbia or India. Deep inside we have the same structure.
I will ask you another question. When I was raising my kids, I found it interesting that there were too many stories of princesses being saved by princes. So I found it difficult to transfer at this time this type of story to my kids. But do you find that as a difficulty or not?
No. Because it is all these stories, particularly those stories which are similar in different cultures, they all have some kind of archetypal structure, and we are today very overburdened with female and male roles. We are also very confused, but you know that we deep inside have also male part and female part. So we should follow the story as it is. We shouldn't change it, because it speaks about very deep relationships we have from the inside, which is very, very not old-fashioned but ancient. Those inner things are not changing very fast. They are very slow.
Yes. And when you were saying about various interactions one human being has with inner child or inner female or inner male, do you have any techniques that you use so that boys connect to their female side and females to their male?
Well, the first thing I have now on my mind is that children identify while you talk. children identify with the characters, and they are passing through some kind of process through while I talk. So this is the reason why many small children like to hear the same story again and again, because this story hits some kind of developmental problem in them, and while they have this problem, they like to hear the same story. They know those stories by heart. If you change something, they react, but they like to hear it because they experience all these emotions and all these things which you pass through while listening to it. It is very, very important to... Sorry, sad sam se spomnila.
Yes. Well, what I will ask you as a question... what I will ask you as a question is, because we live in an internet age, do you find this as a stimulus or a difficulty?
Well, there is a difficulty because you don't have direct contact with children, but I have to tell you that we made my school and we made storytelling during the period of COVID, and it was excellent. Children liked to be connected, and also we did some stories for children from all ex-republics. It was beautiful. Children from various parts of former Yugoslavia used to come and make connection, listen to the story. It is more difficult to do this playful part, but we made some kind of homeworks. Yes. I give them homeworks to do something with their hands after the meeting.
And when you say to do something with their hands, would that be an artwork of clay or painting or
Yes, so, of course. Yes. We can use any material to create something, and it is good because they have some kind of experience through this story. Then we transfer this inner feeling into something which children make with their hands.
With their hands. Thanks a lot for that.